Okay, we're going to go ahead and begin with the in-betweens. And part of the in-betweens is to understand what are these things called the in-betweens. What have we seen as patterns from the student samples that we have from that we've used from TEA that have come back to Spring Branch in May or June. And then after we go through the in-betweens, I'd like for you to with a partner or by yourself, go through 6 samples, and they could be an in-between paper, or they could just be something from a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, or 8. And you'll be able to, that will be your calibration to see how you do with those papers and using the language of the rubric of why you chose them. But first I'd like to go over the in-betweens with you. As we know, in adjacent scoring, you're going to have 2 people next to one another. Well, I don't know if they're physically next to one another, but two scorers. And the 2 scorers will score the paper. Scorer A might score it a 3, scorer B might score it a 3, and then the combined score would be a 6. And we talked about this previously in the training. It's not a problem even if they're 1 point off, because the scores will be combined from scorer 1 and scorer 2. So if scorer A gives them a 3 and scorer B gives them a 2, the child will receive a 5, and that's called an in-between, because it's in between basic and satisfactory. So we're looking at the odd numbers, the 3s, the 5s, and the 7s. The 3s would be between very limited and basic, the 5 between basic and satisfactory, and the 7 between satisfactory and accomplished. And when you have that, a lot of times you will see that it's because they have some of the score point that's higher and some of the score points that's just below that. And so sometimes you will have someone give it a 3 and someone give it a 2. As long as the scoring is not 2 points off, because if it's more than 2 points off, then what TEA does is they ask a third scorer to come in that would be considered the expert scorer, and that person will score it and they will multiply it by 2. On the campuses, you are going to score your own students' papers, and then you'll have someone else who has received this same training. They will score your papers. You will add those 2 scores together in an adjacent scoring model, and then you will put those scores into Eduphoria, and it will go from 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we've talked about this in previous presentations. So you will have them go from 0, which is non-scorable, to review with you again. Non-scorable is illegible, or that it's responding in a language other than the language of testing, or that they didn't respond at all. So you won't have any 0 1s. It'll just be 0 0. It's either non-scorable or it's not. If a person were to receive a score point 2 in the adjacent scoring model, then they will have received a 1 and a 1, which is very limited. Here's are your tweeners. This is what we call the betweeners. At least that's what I call it. And here's a betweener right here, and this is how you would get the betweens. Now the solids are the ones that are 4 and a 4 is an 8, a 3 and a 3 is a 6. And so we look at these writing performances in this way. And so I want to share with you the betweeners, or the tweeners. They're odd numbers. There's 3, 5, and 7. So between limited and basics are 3. Between basic and satisfactory is a 3. Between satisfactory and accomplished is a 3. They have some characteristics of a higher point score and a lower point score. Higher meaning like if it's a 4, or lower point if it's 3. They're sort of in the middle. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the samples that we have from some of our campuses, which we are not going to show the student name, but we have 2013 from last year. And this was the release prompt, because you have to know the release prompt and what was expected before we can determine if they address the prompt or not. So you see a picture of a little girl with a thumbs up, and this is a truism. Great work. It's always nice when another person says good things about something you've done. And then this is the right part. Write about a time when someone said you did a great job. And be sure to, and those are all part of the rubrics that we spoke about before. So, write about a time when someone said you did a great job. This is example 1. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to see what score point it received. Hey, where did everybody go? Am I lost at the mall? I ask myself. Wow, I never would have thought that I'd get lost in a big mall. Well, it seems like I need to find Mom, so here I go. I looked and looked until my phone started ringing. It was my mom who was calling my phone. She told me to go to the Target and wait. I looked at her, but there I found nothing. Then I went to the ice skating rink to find mom, and on the way I got some food. Mostly at the food court I get McDonald's. That person over there looks like mom. Oh wait, that is mom. And I'm so glad that I found her. I started to worry if I was lost for a longer time. We both walked toward the car and we went home after that. So it has some glimpses of, you can say that this is a personal narrative about going to the mall and getting lost and then finding mom. You can see that there were some problems with possible, I'm just looking at some parts when I was trying to read. I had some struggles with my fluency and my comprehension because of some of the spelling errors. So, talk to your group. What do you think it would get? And why, using their language as a rubric? I think because of the conventions, it would bring it down to possibly a 1 or a 2. You can see that you can follow it somewhat. It's shaky on some points. So this would be the one that's sort of in the middle. You're like, well, it has it, but it doesn't, and I'm not sure. Let me go back to the rubric. Let me refer back to those anchor papers. Let me refer back to the scoring guide from TEA, because that's what I do. When I'm not for sure, no matter what, I'm always going to look at the rubric and find the language of the rubric to see where the person fell according to the criteria. And I also will look at those papers from the scoring guide. Those help me tremendously. This is one of those times where I'm going to look at it more than once. Survey says it's between very limited and basic. Some of the conventions got in the way, but I could still understand it. I probably would have given it a 2. But another person from TA gave it a 1, so it had to have gotten a 3. It's between very limited and basic. So let's go into the next one. Oh, by the way, we don't have the annotations from TEA on these because these came from our students' writing. It wasn't from the scoring guide. Okay, example 2. It was the last game of volleyball practice, and I was the last person serving for my team, and even though it was just for fun, I still wanted to serve the ball over the net. Everyone was cheering and shouting, "You can do it!" and I really hoped I could. I chose to serve underhand because I thought it was the easiest. I bent down and held the ball directly in front of me and whacked the ball over the net. Everyone cheered, and then we went to the middle of the court to close our practice. Everyone cheered and hugged me, and I knew I had done a good job. Oops, sorry about that. I didn't know if there was anything more, but you could see it received what it received. But why do you think it would have received a 5? Somebody would have given it a 2. Another person would have given it a 3. This is we call a tweener, in between basic and satisfactory. Let's talk to your group. Pause the video. You can definitely see that it's basic writing performance, that you can follow it, that it sustained the reader a little bit more than maybe a 2 would. As far as word choice, conventions were okay. I think the conventions were fine, actually. I just wondered if it was developed enough or to be a 3. But you did see there was some voice in there, and you could definitely have some, what Gretchen Burnaby calls the skin slippage, where you can slip into the skin of the writer and see what they saw. I just don't think it's a strong 3 if it's a 3. But the transitions could have been added to make it a smoother ride. So this one received a 5. And this is what we call a tweener. So it's in the middle, has some from one and one from, and some characteristics from the other. Let's go to a 3, this example 3. It was a warm summer day in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I was practicing my violin for my violin lesson with my summer teacher. As I was poking up, my mom yelled, "Time to go, Anna," time to go, from the car. Inez, it was time to impress my teacher. I raced to the car and we were off. When we got there, I got my violin and ran inside. I unpacked my violin and bow, and I gave it to my teacher to tune. She handed my violin back to me and said, "Play." I started playing. I played and I played until the lesson was over. I knew it was time to go. I packed up my stuff and said, "Thank you." Before I could touch the doorknob, she said, "Good job." So, what do you think about this one? What are the characteristics? Is it a 1, 2, 3, or 4? Well, I know it's not a 1, and I think it's better than a 2. And it could be a 3 or it could be a 4. What are your thoughts? Pause the video and see what do you think. Okay, we're back. What are your thoughts? Is this a 4? Do you think it has some characteristics of a 4? Or is it a high 3, a low 4? I think it's a 3. It's a high 3. Just because of the transitions were pretty decent, but or maybe it was the word choice that wasn't as outstanding as I usually see it. You definitely see it's a personal narrative. It has a structure of a personal narrative, and I liked parts of it that would make it come alive to me to be a 4. I played and I played until my lesson was over. I knew it was time to go. I packed up my stuff. Thank you. I like this part. Before I could touch the doorknob, she said, "Good job, Anna," or "Good job," whatever the name is. I just thought it needed a little bit more to have a 4. But maybe you think it's a 4. Maybe you can justify it using the language of the rubric, going back to the papers and the scoring guide. Well, one person thought it was a 4 and another person thought it was a 3. So this is between satisfactory and writing and accomplished writing performance. It's important to go back to our students' papers from last year and see how they did. It would have been nice had we had annotations for each one, but we don't. But it's great to go back to the rubric and use those scoring guide papers to help us in our quest to find out why. Okay? So, right now what you're going to do, there's a set of 6 writing samples. You're going to read them to yourself, and I suggest you read them out loud or get to a quiet place where you can concentrate and you won't interrupt anybody else. Maybe you need to go outside to read it out loud. And I want to know how these are scored. You're going to score it on and using the rubric of 1 to 4. And then you're going to come back with a partner and you're going to share what you gave them and what your partner gave them. And then you combine those and that will be your adjacently scored paper. And then we're going to reveal what TEA decided these papers deserve from last year. So first of all, go score them. After you finish scoring, after a while, come back, discuss it with a partner, share the results, and then you'll have your adjacent score as long as they're not off by 2 points. If they're off by 2 points, you can look at it again, talk to someone else, and see what they thought. Okay? This must have an adjacent score because I'm going to reveal to you what was given from the state, what the scores in the state decided. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to pause, and I would ask you to pause the video and look at those 6 samples. All right? And I'll get back to you as soon as you all have time to do that. Thank you.